In this world, the moon is undergoing a mutation that will cause the temperature to rise above 100 degrees. The surface becomes so hot that power plants explode due to the heat. You can't walk outside for more than 20 seconds without fainting, and the asphalt is so hot that if you touch it, you melt. With the whole world unable to leave their homes, supplies have become the most valuable commodity. Our protagonist survived for 5 years with his girlfriend. However, as soon as his supplies began to run out, she sent a guy to kill him before everything was depleted. But now, 5 years back in time before it all started, he has the ability to stockpile food and resources. And in this life, he will accumulate 3 billion resources and vows to be the cruelest person to seek revenge on everyone. But at this moment, our protagonist is on the bus where people are discussing how Mount Fuji has experienced an earthquake that killed dozens of people, and now their city is also being evacuated. The girl in the tight pink dress says they had to leave so quickly that she couldn't even buy supplies. The guy beside her says all the supplies from the surrounding cities disappeared mysteriously, and the other guy with shaved hair says the same thing happened at Donman Lake in Chiangsaen City and also at the Dahunan warehouse. The girl is scared, saying all this must be worth billions. It's at this point that our protagonist from behind everyone says it's actually worth trillions. And the disappearance of so many supplies plus all these natural disasters shows that something is going on. It's good to be alert. The girl asks him if it's the end of the world, while the guy in the green shirt says he's excited. He can't wait for people to be treated equally. But our protagonist thinks that inequality will only increase. Even at the end of the world, there wasn't a day when life was equal. After all, he personally experienced it. In his past life, he was just an ordinary delivery guy, until suddenly the apocalypse began and heat waves hit the whole earth. The tectonic plates moved and creatures hidden in the core emerged to the surface. The whole world changed overnight, and in this new world, there was a new order. In a society of extreme scarcity, even simple supplies like instant noodles were worth millions, and a sausage was enough to buy any favor. In that world, everyone gave up on normality, and now, after everything that happened in his life, he was reborn a month before it all started. The girl in the pink dress clings to him and says she's kind of scared. Can he calm her down? But he leaves, saying there are more important things to do, leaving her puzzled. Outside the bus, he wonders. In an apocalypse, what's more important? Obviously, supplies and resources. In his past life, he spent all his time searching for them. But this time, he will prepare in advance. He works at this Walmart, and at the moment, the boss is saying he will have his salary reduced. He says it's okay and apologizes, remembering that in the first apocalypse, when everything started, the boss of this place took all the supplies and fled. So now, as compensation, he will take them for himself. He then opens the warehouse, and the system begins to detect all the nearby supplies and sends them to his spatial space. A huge area with a dimension of over 10,000 meters. With this ability, he has been stealing even water from lakes and taking all the supplies from cities that are going to be destroyed. After all, if instant noodles are worth so much, imagine real food. The best part is that time there is frozen, so it means the food stays perfect no matter how long it stays there. Finally, he will have something to eat. The system shows how many resources were acquired in this activation, and he feels that after taking so much, he's finally prepared. At this moment, 3 guys from work enter the completely empty warehouse and ask what happened. Our protagonist reveals that he took everything, and the boss says he has no idea how he did it, but orders the other 2 to get him. But the moment they approach, he takes a step back and mysteriously disappears into thin air. They stand there puzzled, wondering where he disappeared to, while he reappears outside. This is his second ability, spatial jump. Using his spatial power, he can teleport up to 3 meters away. With this, he can gather supplies much more easily and escape without a fuss. He tosses his uniform in the air, declaring the collection complete. Then he receives a message on his phone from the authorities warning that the Earth is undergoing strange movements and everyone should be cautious because a disaster could happen. But there's no need to panic. Our protagonist finds this curious since nothing has really started yet and they're already saying this. Does it mean they somehow know the future? At that moment, he receives a call from his girlfriend, Jang Seokyeon. He sighs and answers, and she scolds him, asking how he have the nerve to put their house up for sale. Does he think she'll really stay with him if he sells the house? He needs to be more responsible as a man because even though she doesn't want the house, she's still a woman. And if he wants to prove to her that he's a real man, he should hand over the house to make her feel secure. Su-chen, our protagonist, asks if she has anything else to say. She says, what kind of attitude is this? If he hands over the house, she'll give him another chance. Just transfer the documents to her. But if he doesn't do that, don't even think about marrying her. But Su-chen hangs up without saying anything. He remembers that in the last 5 years of the apocalypse, he went out every day to hunt for supplies to feed her, and even took her to one of the safe zones. If it weren't for him, she would have starved in the first few days. But still, and he remembers a day when he returned home and was attacked from behind. All because he wasn't bringing in as many supplies, and they wanted to know if he was hiding something. After Su Chen was killed, they had fun next to his body. And Jiang Xiaoqun warned the guy on top of her that Su Chen died because he was a useless incompetent. And it's good for this guy to prove he's not so incompetent. Su Chen was devastated to have trusted such a person for so long. But in this life, Xiaoqun and that guy named Wang will pay the price. And they won't die easily. The pain he felt, they will feel 100 times more. He calms down and remembers that the things he needs now are not found in the market and can only be bought with money. But first, he needs to get that money. So he calls a guy named Liu and says he's selling his house at half price, but he wants the money now. In front of the real estate agency, Wang and Xiaoqun are waiting for him. When he appears, Xiaoqun scolds him for keeping her waiting for so long. But he ignores her and walks past. Wang asks who let him sell the house and that if he does anything like this again, he won't see the sun tomorrow. But at that moment, Su Chen, who has learned to fight after surviving, grabs him by the neck and throws him to the ground, saying he can do whatever he wants with his things. While Xiaoqun is scared by this and tries to stop him. But she receives a slap and falls to the ground in disbelief. On the ground, Wang is begging him to let go, saying he's almost suffocating, but Su Chen tells him not to worry since he won't die so easily. He then releases Wang, who is shocked on the ground, while Su Chen enters the real estate agency. At that moment, Xiaoqun threatens him, saying to seize this opportunity she's giving him. If he kneels down and apologizes, she'll consider his case. But if he doesn't do that, forget about marrying her. Su Chen looks back and stares at the two who run away in fear. Inside the real estate agency, the attendant offers him some water, saying they will buy his house now. What does he think? The realtor's plan is simple. Su Chen's house is worth $1 million, but now he's selling it for $700,000. All he needs to do is buy and sell to someone else, and he'll make a good profit. Su Chen agrees to sell, but he has to receive the full payment now. The guy agrees, saying they'll transfer everything, and by tomorrow morning, it'll all be sorted out. Su Chen obviously agrees because houses will lose all value as temperatures rise. Despite several disasters occurring, the city is still peaceful for now. Volcanoes, earthquakes, and tsunamis are all still far away. Walking down the street, he sees a poster advertising quick loans. He decides to go there with his house certificate. Upon arrival, he's shocked to see it's the older brother of the guy who just beat him up, knowing this guy will die in the jaws of a monster in the first few days. The guy says he can lend him $500,000. He just needs to leave the house certificate. Su Chen hands over the certificate, saying he wants another $100,000 and promises to win it all back at the casino in a week. The seller likes hearing this and thinks this kid must be one of those gamblers who would sell even their relatives if necessary. This way, he won't be able to pay, will keep the house, and he'll still have a lot of debt. With that, the guy agrees, and another $600,000 is transferred. Xiaoqun is angry along with Wang, saying he'll pay the price for this. As they were going to visit Wang's brother and Su Chen just came from there, they spot him. Wang wants to know what he's doing here, already grabbing his neck in fear, but they decide to follow him. Su Chen remembers that several buildings will collapse because of the tsunamis. But this hotel in the Green City has withstood all disasters until the end. He knows the presidential suite is well equipped and even has a pool. Maybe it's a good place to use as a base for a while. Even at the end of times, this place continued to have food for a long time. He is then greeted by the attendant Liu Xinru, who asks what she can do for him. Su Chen says he wants 1,000 tables for a banquet, startling her. She offers some table options, thinking this kid must be the son of someone very rich. He says he'll want the table that costs $10,000 each and will make a deposit of $500,000. When everything is settled, he'll make the rest of the payment. She is somewhat incredulous, but says to follow her to make the payment, thinking that even though this payment of his may not be much, someone who easily spends $500,000 surely has more to spend, so it's best to facilitate the process. Entering the room, she asks if he's getting married. He says yes, and all this is for a wedding, and he also wants the presidential suite. Sometime later, he's leaving the hotel all happy. He got over $10 million in food, spending $500,000 with the advance deposit. And it doesn't matter about the rest, since when the apocalypse begins, the ice blocks he'll have will be worth billions. Watching him leave, she thinks whoever marries him is a lucky girl. At that moment, Xiaoqun appears and asks what that person was doing. The attendant asks who she is, and she says she's Su Chen's girlfriend. The attendant then says her boyfriend ordered a banquet for over 1,000 people and paid $500,000. To have a boyfriend like him, she's really lucky. However, the attendant is looking and thinking this girl is at most a 7. But she has a good body. Why do rich guys always like women like this? Xiaoqian and Yang are shocked. A $10 million banquet. The attendant says it's the case and that maybe she hasn't realized, but many rich people do this. They get into relationships and hide all the money they have until the day of the wedding. Xiaoqian starts to believe this, and Wang thinks it's impossible for that loser to have so much money. However, the attendant shows that she received the transfer of 500,000. On the street, Wang is asking Xiaoqian, who is he going to invite to a 1,000-person banquet? Now Xiaoqian is confident, saying, "You really don't understand, do you? He's trying to introduce me to the circle of millionaires he knows. Only then will he reveal my identity." Wang is wanting to become a mountaineer and venture into the mountains, but she slaps him. Thinking that she has to create as many opportunities as possible to stay with that loser while imagining herself as a wealthy lady in a chair being pampered, her eyes sparkle. She never imagined this scenario. She'll definitely have to marry Su Chen the loser, and that's too good. Meanwhile, Su Chen is just tallying up what he's done. 700,000 for the house, plus 600,000 loan and 500,000 for the banquet. And now that his name is about to be tarnished, taking out a bunch more loans wouldn't be bad. So he installs all the banking apps on his phone and starts taking out a bunch more loans. After creating over 80 accounts, he managed to get another 970,000. Now he needs to buy a fireplace, ice-making machine, ice blocks, smokeless charcoal, and a few other things that aren't available in the markets. With the amount of money he has, buying online with fast delivery is easy. These items are essential for surviving the extreme cold and heat that will occur. He then orders 2,000 tons of smokeless charcoal, and also calls an ice factory to make a reservation. As he's walking down the street, a girl calls out to him. She's a friend of Xiaoqian's and says Xiaoqian misses him. However, Su Chen knows this girl isn't up to any good and has always spoken ill of him to everyone. So he tells her, "Miss me. She must miss my house, right?" Lena looks at Xiaoqian and says Su Chen must be testing her, and she has to realize how sad he was with her behavior. Xiaoqian then rushes to Shen to apologize, feeling embarrassed, asking if he can accompany her for a walk. She's not feeling well and she was sad to have fought with him yesterday. But Su Chen ignores her and tells her to go for a walk alone. Xiaoqian is losing her temper, saying he's being too arrogant, and Lena says he's getting a taxi. It's good they follow him and see what he's up to. Meanwhile, Su Chen is arriving at the ice factory. The guy receives him, impressed that he's so young. Su Chen asks if the 2,000 tons of edible ice are ready, and the attendant says his factory isn't cheap, but guarantees extremely fast delivery. He just needs to pay a small portion, and they'll deliver everything. Su Chen then transfers 100,000 to him, and the seller informs that everything will be delivered in 3 days. Saving the money, the attendant asks why he needs so much ice. Is he organizing an event? If he wants, they can cooperate in the future, and the price is negotiable. Su Chen says it's all for a charity event and leaves. At that moment, another taxi stops and the seller gets excited. But it's Xiaoqian wanting to know what that guy who just left was doing here. She's asking because he's her boyfriend. The seller is confused. Is this girl playing detective? What's going on here? He says he ordered 800,000 in ice. Both of them are shocked. 800,000 in ice. It's confirmed. He's a millionaire indeed to do something like that. Lena asks, did he tell you what he's going to do with so much ice? The seller thinks and remembers. He said he's going to donate it to charity. Both of them get scared without understanding the reason. The scene shifts to one of the city's fanciest restaurants. In his past life, he never enjoyed anything before everything was destroyed, and even having a coffee was a luxury. Looking at the menu, he sees it's all quite expensive. And on the last page, there's something for 17,000 with a question mark. He asks when it is, and the attendant says it's a special item made by their chef. Su Chen says it sounds good and places the order. He remembers that in his past lives, several creatures mutated. Some people thought it was some kind of biological change. But for him, it was just the creatures adapting to the new environment. At that moment, a girl with pink hair comes to deliver his order. She's marvelous and introduces herself as the chef of this restaurant. Su Chen recognizes her as Chef Duanya. During the apocalypse, she became known as the Hell's Chef. She had some kind of magical culinary ability that turned corpses into edible things. And in a world of scarcity, no one could resist temptation. However, the dishes made with mutated creatures always ended up killing people. Seeing his expression, she wonders, does he think that a beautiful girl like me would poison his food? And then she tells him that the dish she served is called Two-Faced Life. It's a meat dish with different preparations on each side. Su Chen tries it and says it's really worth the $17,000, while thinking it would be wonderful to have her at home to cook. Outside, Lena says she heard this restaurant is really expensive, and Xiaoqian says she can't wait to become a rich wife. So Su Chen decides to go to one of the city's most expensive bars, since soon it won't be possible. As soon as he sits down, a bunch of girls surround him asking what he wants to drink. He starts drinking with them, and when he looks to the side, there's a girl sitting there. Her friend says she was betrayed by her boyfriend and came here to have some fun. The girl says her boyfriend didn't even sleep with her and cheated on her with an old woman. Why do all men act like that? Su Chen says it's because men's instinct to reproduce is ingrained in their DNA and mind. Suddenly, she drinks her entire drink and asks if he's single. He's confused, but she approaches and asks if he's interested. At that moment, Xiaoqian and Lina enter the bar looking for him. And at a table in the corner, they see him with the 3 girls. Su Chen tells her they can go up to a room and she seems to agree, so the two rush off. It seems the desire between them is strong. Xiaoqian and Lina shout at him to stop, but the two run to the room, enter, and close the door. He apologizes to her for those two, and the girl timidly says it's her first time. Su Chen feels awkward and flicks her forehead, saying she must be drunk to do something like that. He tells her not to leave the house for the next few days and to stock up on food. She says she understands. And then he says a girl like her shouldn't be in a place like this. With that, he closes the door and leaves, thinking it's a shame, but he won't be able to seize this opportunity. When he leaves the room, Xiaoqian and Lina are kicking all the doors. But he easily leaves, and the next day he receives all the delivery trucks, from the ice, charcoal, to the banquets. Wang is confused in the crowd, wondering why the hell Su Chen rented such a huge warehouse just to receive so much stuff, and now even Xiaoqian is getting confused, wondering what he's doing. At that moment, Lina points out that the banquet from the Green City Hotel has arrived. They're laying out the carpets and organizing all the tables beautifully. Could it be that suddenly a bunch of people will arrive, and you will declare his love for her and propose? Xiaoqian is now all haughty, saying that even if he proposes, she'll still think about his case. They say they need to see his sincerity and decide to go talk to him. She then goes to Su Chen and asks why he's buying so much stuff. And Su Chen says he'll explain later, but can she help him organize everything? Xiaoqian is scared, thinking he's a jerk for making the girl who's about to become rich soon do such hard work. Lina says it must be some kind of test to see if she's qualified to become a rich girl, and at that, Xiaoqian changes her attitude and says she's not that weak type of woman. She knows how to be delicate, but also knows how to work and starts carrying the boxes. But she's dying of anger, saying that when she becomes a rich woman, Su Chen will pay. At that moment, Lina comes to try to seduce him, saying she'll help carry the boxes. In her mind, she's sure that someone as rich as him won't have just one woman, right? As long as she shows a bit of what she has to offer, she might at least get to enjoy a little. Meanwhile, Su Chen is thinking he can't lose free labor like this. After all, with so much ice and tables to set up, they'll need some help. Some time passes and they finally finish everything. Xiaoqian is dripping with sweat and her legs are shaking. She says she's been carrying stuff since morning until now. As soon as she becomes his wife, she'll make sure to take all his money. Lina, lying on the ground, is also finished, saying that the damn guy really made them carry those heavy ice boxes. Xiaoqian says enough of this test, he has to propose to her right away and start the party or the guests will arrive. And Lina says he needs to hurry up because the food is getting cold. Meanwhile, Su Chen gives a good amount of extra money to all the delivery guys who thank him from the bottom of their hearts. At that moment, Xiaoqian comes and asks, Su Chen, don't you have something to tell me? Su Chen says yes, he thanks her for the help, but unfortunately, there's no payment for them, so they can leave now. Xiaoqian is shocked and tells him to stop joking. The guests are already arriving, not to mention there are 1,000 tables. Why doesn't he just reveal that he wants to marry her so they can have a good life? Su Chen looks back and says that's impossible for him. After all, he's already sold the house and accumulated a bunch of debts. Does she really want to marry him? Lina says that doesn't make sense. How can someone with no money buy so much ice? Su Chen says he's only doing all this to help his very rich boss who wants to do a charity project. Xiaoqian loses her temper and anger and attacks him, saying he's been lying to her this whole time. He says he hasn't lied about anything, while she falls to the ground with a monstrous look, saying he's just a poor loser who can forget about marrying her. Su Chen says he's not interested at all, and she angrily leaves, saying he's a bastard and will regret it. When they both leave, he thinks they'll regret it once the apocalypse starts. He then closes the warehouse door to start storing everything in his space. With that, all preparations are finally ready. Back at the hotel with Wang DeHai, the guy he borrowed money from. Wan Hoyu pulls Xiaoqian aside and tells her not to pay attention to that loser Su Chen anymore. She should stick with him all the time anyway. She's gnashing her teeth, saying she's looking forward to his performance tonight. And Wang tells her not to worry, he'll ask his brother DeHai to deal with that guy for her. Qian thinks that Wang isn't really that bad after all, plus he has his influential brother. He's definitely better than that loser. Just then, Su-chen says she really throws herself at anyone. She's startled and asks what he's doing there, while Wang points at him and tells his brother it was this guy who hit him. DEHYDRATED says he didn't expect it to be this guy here, and Wang asks if he knows that guy. DEHYDRATED explains that this kid borrowed 600,000 from him and has to pay it back by tomorrow. Wang says that's perfect, they can settle these two things. While Qian is now happily saying she really got rid of a loser, especially one who owes money to DEHYDRATED's brother. Su-chen says it really is impossible to have a good meal in that place, and DEHYDRATED reminds him that the payment date is tomorrow. Why is he here in this hotel acting like everything's fine? Wang shouts at his brother not even to talk to this guy since he hit him. Shinru then appears and asks what's going on and if they can resolve it. DEHYDRATED says if she forces that kid to kneel down and apologize, they can let it slide for today. She then asks Su-chen what's going on. He says it's just some pests bothering him. DEHYDRATED then bangs on the table, saying he was only calm because his payment is due tomorrow. But from afar, a guy with a goatee asks what's going on and who let him cause trouble here. Su-chen and DEHYDRATED recognize this guy as Gao Kang. DEHYDRATED starts apologizing, asking what he's doing here. Gao Kang says he has important matters to discuss here today, and it's not for him to cause trouble. DEHYDRATED knows this guy is an entrepreneur but is involved in various underworld activities, and he has a lot of people under his command, so it's really not good to go against him. And with that, he apologizes, saying he'll come back later. Su-chen recognizes this guy as Skull Crusher. And in the apocalypse, this guy became one of the most powerful forces, and he even had the boss of Hell working for him. Su-chen remembers that this hotel was one of the first places where some people with powers appeared, and maybe he got so strong because of something that will happen here. Gao Kang stares at him while Su-chen thinks whatever opportunity arises in this hotel, he'll seize it. Sometime later, Gao Kang is taking Duan Ya to meet someone named Mr. Sun, and she asks what this guy wants to discuss with her. Mr. Sun says he was looking forward to meeting the wonderful Miss Duan and then serves her a drink. Duan Ya realizes there's something wrong with that glass, clearly containing some kind of drug, while Su-chen remembers in his past life he hid in the basement with Xiaoqiang and barely survived. He never expected that in this life he would kick her and she would still follow him here. But this is the perfect opportunity for revenge. Looking at the pool where the two brothers are going to refresh themselves, saying that tonight is strangely hot, but it's worth it since the girls will come in bikinis. They then appear and look at the moon, saying it's strangely bright. It's shining as much as the daytime sun. At that moment, Wang declares his love for her, while Su-chen in the room says their love is really about to explode. With the glass to the moon, he welcomes the apocalypse. The moon then begins to tremble and emit a red aura. Everyone outside feels something strange and their skin begins to burn. They all start running back to the hotel, saying something's wrong. Why is the moonlight burning so much? Inside the hotel, people are confused. It's night, but it's very bright. At that moment, the three of them are running, and everyone is scared. Their skin is already red. They are desperate, looking for somewhere to cool down. They then see an aquarium, run to it, knock it over, and jump in to relieve the pain. The hotel staff ask what's going on and where is DEHYDRATED's brother. At that moment, Wang remembers his brother, who appears at the door with his skin all burnt. In the room, Mr. Sun is asking Duan why she's not drinking, and Gao Kang says they prepared a banquet, so why don't they go there now? But Mr. Sun tells him that in this city, nobody can refuse to drink the wine he pours into the glass. Duan gets angry, thinking Gao Kang set her up. He's so eager to raise his social status that he handed her over to this Mr. Sun. She knows this Sun Debiao very well. He's a guy who's invincible in the city of Shanggu and has harmed many women. And today she became his target. She's absolutely sure there's something wrong with this wine, so she can't drink it. But what will she do? Right at that moment, the moon starts burning the three of them, and they close the curtain wondering what's happening. Mr. Sun says they'd better go down to understand better, and Duan feels relieved to get out of the situation. In the lobby, Shinru is trying to calm everyone down, saying the rescue teams must be coming. Gao Kang asks one of his henchmen what's going on. He explains that suddenly the moon shone red and the temperature outside rose by over 70 degrees. In the news, they're saying that a lot of people have already been injured and burned. Mr. Sun calls the minister and asks them to send someone to pick him up. However, sometime later, he tells Gao Kang that unfortunately it seems they're having some problems and won't be able to make it. Meanwhile, DEHYDRATED is in agony with his entire skin burned. People are trying to apply some burn ointments, but it's not enough. Not to mention he needs to be taken to a hospital, but with his high temperature outside, it will be impossible. He says he'll call a friend to come pick him up. The friend answers the phone, saying it's in the middle of nowhere, but okay, he'll come. As soon as he leaves the garage, he sees it's too hot and gets confused. The heat is so intense that the tires burst, and gets out of the car, calls his friend to let him know he'll be delayed, and runs away. However, the sole of his shoe melts and he slips and falls to the ground. Looking sideways, he sees another person lying there, already a dry corpse. He gets scared and tries to get up without realizing that half of his face is already on the asphalt. Everyone in the hotel is startled when he screams on the phone. While all this is happening, our protagonist is in his room with controlled temperature. He's sleeping soundly in bed, and government announcements are already being made. Due to the intense heat emitted by the moon, temperatures have risen by over 75 degrees, with the ground reaching over 100. The event has already resulted in hundreds of casualties. Please stay indoors to avoid skin and respiratory burns. At that moment, one of the power plants explodes due to excess heat, cutting off some communications. DEHYDRATED says he lost contact with his friends. While everyone is in the last room left in the hotel, Shaoqian and Lena are complaining that they don't want to stay in a room full of men. But at that moment, the power goes out. And with that, the air conditioning also stops working and everyone starts taking off their shirts, dying of heat. Xiaoqian remembers that Su-chen's room has a pool. Meanwhile, our protagonist is swimming peacefully. He already knew the power would go out because of the explosion in the power plants. And that's also why he chose a room specifically with a pool, in addition to vertical air conditioners and giant batteries to ensure the temperature. But he's also missing some ice here. He changes, sits on the sofa, thinking it's very nice now. He's hungry, so he sets up a banquet on the table. As it's the first day of the apocalypse, he needs a small breakfast, while wondering when that Go-chan will have the chance to gain powers. Someone knocks on the door, saying they know he's in there. Our protagonist knows that with the power to teleport and the preparations he made, he doesn't need to worry. So to cause anger and envy, he decides to open the room. As soon as the door begins to open, a cold breeze comes out and everyone feels an indescribable relief, wondering, why does it seem so nice in there and why does he have air conditioning? Su-chen asks if they need anything. Wang points out to everyone that he has ice, a pool, food, and electricity. Lina and Xiaoqian start shouting at him, asking how he dares to let them burn outside all day while he's living in luxury. He better leave that room now. DEHYDRATED tells him the time to pay back everything he owed has come, so he better hand over that room. But the moment he steps into the room, he takes a shot in the stomach. DEHYDRATED is shocked when he sees the wound, and Su-chen warns that if he takes another step, he'll die. Everyone is trembling now. Does he really have a gun? DEHYDRATED is outraged, asking where he got that. But another shot is heard in the room, and everyone is scared when DEHYDRATED falls to the ground, now with a wound in his leg. Su-chen points outside, saying whoever wants to die can stay there, and he'll give them 3 seconds. Whoever is in his line of sight will go to the next life. Meanwhile, Gao Chang is talking to Xinru, asking how is it possible for such a large hotel not to have any food. She apologizes, saying they recently had a banquet for over 1,000 people, and the ingredients and food were scheduled to arrive today. At this moment, Mr. Sun, pouring water over his body, commands her to bring all the water and food she has right away. Families start to become outraged by the water waste he's causing, and a war breaks out in the lobby. Just then, DEHYDRATED arrives with his injuries, and everyone warns that Su-chen shot someone. Seeing the wound, Gao Chang wonders, is there someone with a gun in this place? Seems like there's a tough guy living upstairs. Xiaoqian then informs everyone that Su-chen's room has electricity, air conditioning, and even a pool. People surround her, asking if she's not lying, if she's sure. She affirms they can believe her. He even has an ice cube and plenty of food. So everyone decides to go to his room. Meanwhile, Gao Chang sends one of his henchmen to take a look as well. Once again, he opens the door, asking what they want, and everyone feels the refreshing cool air touching their skin. It seems like paradise in there. The crowd outside pleads for him to be kind and take care of the elderly, stating that since it's a hotel emergency, he should share everything he has with everyone. The chubby little boy spots some fried chicken and jumps to grab it. However, he's stopped with a kick to the belly and is sent flying. Su-chen warns the parents to take care of the kids or he'll have to do it for them. People are outraged, asking how he dares to hit a child. He's truly a murderer and doesn't deserve to stay in that room. Everyone starts to enter. However, at that moment, he shoots the guy in the back who falls to the ground. Su-chen warns that he may be alone, but everyone there only has one life. He knows the situation seems dangerous, but at any moment, he can jump through the portal and disappear. Downstairs, Wang is furious. After his brother suffered 2 gunshot wounds, the crowd threw his body out because he was already dying and decomposing. Wine is saying they have to kill that damn Su Chen. Meanwhile, in Su Chen's room, Xiaoqian and Lina are sweating and dripping with heat as they're asking to come in, saying they're sure he wouldn't have the courage to shoot them, and that they love him very much and are sure he loves them. If he lets them stay there for a little while, they promise to join him in a 2-against-1 adventure all night long. Su Chen says that since they want to work together so eagerly, he'll let them in. They're all happy and disbelieving, but suddenly, Wan passes between them, hitting them, saying he'll kill him. When he's about to touch Su Chen, he takes a blow to the face, collides with the two, and everyone falls to the ground. Seeing Wang beaten in their arms, they're afraid to enter the room, and Su Chen says, "Just go away from here." They leave, and he says he's just playing for now, but if anyone tries anything, the artillery robot he has installed will sort everything out in seconds. Tanks are seen outside the hotel, and everyone believes it's the rescue team. They leave armed and wearing protective clothing. Upon entering the hotel, they ask if someone named Liu Xingo is there. The guy introduces himself, and they then tell him to put on the insulation suit and come with them. Everyone asks to be rescued together. However, the soldier assures them to stay calm. The rescue operation will take place tonight at midnight in Silicon Valley Square. The residents celebrate, saying the government really hasn't abandoned them. Meanwhile, Mr. Sun says he'll pay $1 billion if they take him now. However, he's restrained by one of the soldiers who tells him not to interfere with the operation. Mr. Sun tells Gao Kang to do something, but clearly, with so much aimed at him, there's no way. At that moment, Xiaoqian grabs one of the soldiers and says there's a killer living upstairs, and Lina says he's already killed a bunch of people and will soon finish everyone here. They need to save the people in the hotel. A soldier named Xiao Feng then says he'll take a look, and his friend tells him to be careful and not act impulsively. He takes his gun and starts climbing the stairs toward the room. While Xiaoqian is thinking this is the perfect situation. As soon as this guy kills Su Chen, she'll steal that room for herself. Xiao Feng cautiously walks down the hallway, observing every corner until he notices a camera looking at him. Suddenly, Su Chen opens the door and throws a flashbang. Before he could understand what's happening, it explodes in his face, blinding him. A sleeping gas falls at his feet, and when he crouches, Su Chen appears from behind and hits him on the head. Sometime later, he wakes up in the room, not understanding what's happening and why it's so cold. Su Chen tells him, "Your name is Luke Xiaofeng, and you're a captain of the Special Forces. Now that you're awake, let's talk." Xiaofeng looks around at the ice cubes and asks what's going on here, who he is, and where he got those grenades and weapons. Su Chen says he's just a regular guy who just graduated, and he got those weapons on a trip to the Middle East. Su Chen then asks if the government set the rescue points for tomorrow morning, and Xiaofeng is surprised by the fact that he already knows that information. Su Chen realizes it's all going to be the same as in the past life and warns Xiaofeng that even though the temperature is lower at midnight, people can't stand more than 10 minutes outside. The vast majority will die just trying to reach the rescue point. Xiaofeng says they have no choice since many people are starving in their homes who can't stand the heat anymore. Their only chance is to reach the rescue point, and since it's difficult to modify the vehicles, there's no time to rescue everyone indoors. At least if they put some blankets over their heads, maybe they can make it. Su Chen then suddenly puts his hand on his shoulder and points the gun. Xiaofeng asks him to calm down and says all he wants is to at least warn everyone to go with blankets. Su Chen then cuts the rope and says he's free since he respects the fact that he's saving lives. But it's good he doesn't try to come in here again. Xiaofeng asks if he's not afraid he'll come back with other people, but Su Chen shows him there's no need to be afraid. And Xiaofeng recognizes it right away. It's a camera with facial recognition and a built-in automatic machine gun. He wants to know where Su Chen got it, but Su Chen says he already said the Middle East. Now he better leave the room because he doesn't have time to deal with this anymore. Xiaofeng accepts and leaves back to the tank. Mr. Sun gets angry, thinking that not even the damn soldier could deal with the guy. He hits Gao Qian, saying he really can't do anything. Gao Qian's henchmen ask if they really won't do anything and will tolerate this guy. Gao Qian explains that after everyone is rescued, they'll still need the connections. It's dangerous to act now. At that moment, Su Chen appears and says, "In times of chaos, you're still dreaming of restoring order." The henchman gets angry, but Gao Qian tells him to calm down and asks why Su Chen came down. Su Chen then shows a bucket of ice, saying he came here to negotiate. The henchman tells Gao Qian it's good to kill that kid now and take everything he has in the room. But Su Chen points the gun, and the guy gives up the idea. Gao Qian then says they should talk business, and he hands over the edible ice to both of them. When they eat it, they're impressed with how delicious it is. Gao Qian now also wants to kill Su Chen to take everything he has. But first, they'll meet his demands. At that moment, Mr. Sun kicks him in the stomach, saying he's a damn liar for hiding those ice cubes and starts stepping on him, saying if he hides anything else, he'll die. Gao-kun is losing it, and Mr. Sun sees Do-won sitting, saying she's a very modest girl. Everyone is about to die of heat, and she hasn't even had the courage to take off her clothes. But he grabs her arm, saying he's tired of seeing her attitude, and he's in the mood to do certain things, so she better follow him. Do-won slaps him in the face, calling him a bastard. But suddenly, Sun rips her shirt, saying for her disobedience, he'll take advantage first, and then everyone will do what they want. She falls to the ground scared, and he says she's sweating a lot and he's just doing her a favor. Until Gao-qian appears behind him, saying enough of this. Sun turns to say something, but Gao-qian punches him in the neck with a closed hand, breaking it instantly. He falls to the ground dead, and Gao-qian says Su-chen is right. Indeed, this place is already chaos and people like him have to die with it, and then warns that this place is now under his control. Whoever doesn't want to obey will go to the rescue point or die here. Upstairs, Su-chen observes, saying that apparently his words were effective. Gao-qian was already the boss of this place in the past lives, so he just sped things up. And with that, the two of them have already been thrown out. Gao-qian then starts drinking the ice Su-chen gave him, while Xiaoqian and Lina beg for a little peace, saying they'll do whatever he wants. He throws it to them, saying it's okay. He'll give them some, but they better obey any demand. His henchman asks if they're not going to the rescue point, and Gao-qian says it's too far. It's not certain they'll survive. The henchman asks why he wants these women if they're running out of resources. Gao-qian says it's all part of the plan to deal with Su-chen. At midnight, Lina and Xiaoqian try to leave, covering themselves with blankets, but the henchman comes and takes everything off them. Xiaoqian asks what he thinks he's doing, but the henchman warns that now that they've taken the ice, they'll have to stay with him for a while. Those who decided not to obey Gao-qian because he didn't provide supplies are trying to reach the rescue point. But even though it's midnight, the ground is much hotter than they imagined. They're trying to protect their feet with a piece of wood, but it makes it difficult to walk, and one of them stumbles. Upon contact with the ground, their hand and face melt, leaving the survivor behind to die. Meanwhile, DEHYDRATED He's body, which was burning on the ground until now, wakes up with red eyes. From the balcony, Su-chen observes everything, remembering that in the past life, he almost died on this walk. Xiaoqian and Lina say they can do whatever he wants, but why don't they at least go to the room? The henchman says they're being too shy, there's no need to try to hide. But suddenly the glass shatters and the two chubby guys who were burned come running after everyone. Wang thinks they're zombies and asks if they'll turn too if they're bitten. Gao-qian says they need to figure it out, then grabs him by the neck and throws him to the two creatures. Wang's back is burned just by making contact with the creatures, and Su-chen appears with a blade, telling everyone to get out of the way. The henchman can't believe he wants to deal with these monsters, and Gao-qian is eager, thinking that as soon as Su-chen kills the two, he'll kill him and take everything from him. Su-chen knows that bodies exposed to heat turn into zombies, but they don't share any virus. You could say they're more like drought demons. The difference is that these demons retain some memories from their past life. Su-chen stands still and Mr. Sun passes by him and goes towards Gao-qian. That's because he was killed by him. But Wang DeHe was killed by Su-chen and attacks him. However, seeing this situation, he's sure that the chance for Gao-qian to awaken some powers by killing Mr. Sun. So he goes in his direction and cuts off his chance. A purple crystal comes out of his body. And that's a kind of core that can evolve a human body. He grabs the crystal, jumps back, and pushes DeHy towards everyone. With that, he goes up the stairs and tells them to have fun. Gao-qian grabs the guy on the ground again and throws him towards the creature. Back in his room, Su-chen says these crystals are extremely rare. He puts it in a glass and drinks it since that's the absorption method. The body extracts the energy from the crystal and strengthens itself. His eyes turn red and he starts screaming while all his clothes burn. He falls on the ground on top of an ice block, while in the lobby, the drought demon has finished all their water. Now without anything to drink or eat, Lina wants to escape. But the henchman stops her, saying she's not going to run away. At that moment, Lina says they should use Xiaoqian. She was Su-chen's wife, and if they throw her at the door, it's certain he'll open it, and then they can try to steal something from him. The henchman says it's a great idea, and Xiaoqian says she'll help, but she wants to eat meat first. The henchman says there's no meat since the refrigerators have been off for days. Gao-qian looks at her and asks if she wants meat, then he has a solution. They restrain Lina, and he warns her that if she wants to, she'll have to do it. Xiaoqian is shocked, asking if he means they're going to eat her meat. While Lina is trembling, Xiaoqian is going towards her. Lina pleads, saying, "What are you doing? You're not going to do that, are you?" But Xiaoqian goes to her face and says she just betrayed her by talking about her being Su-chen's wife. Since she did that, she deserves it, and then strikes 3 times. Gao-qian and the henchman are even scared to see how she did that without hesitation. Xiaoqian is going crazy, saying that when she's full, she'll go up and drink Su Chen's blood. The henchman looks at Gao Qian and asks if they're really going to do that. Gao Qian says to call the boss Duan quickly, or else they'll dry up. Meanwhile, in the room, Su Chen is jumping around with his new body. Not only is he more resistant to heat, but he's also more agile and strong. At that moment, he sees Duan at the door. Standing at the entrance, she's thinking it's getting crazy down there. She doesn't have a chance of surviving if she stays there, so she has to try her luck and use what's left of her value to get something here. Right at that moment, Su Chen opens the door naked, and she gets scared. She screams and he apologizes, saying it was unintentional. He was excited about some news. In the room, he then tells her that even though he has resources, it's limited, and besides, they just met and he can't accept her just because she's beautiful, right? He remembers that in the past life, she was a very smart woman. Furthermore, she formed a cooperative relationship with Gao Qian. However, even though he had thought about having her around, the atmosphere feels strange now. Duan then tells him that she's not just a cook, she's also a doctor who has been working as a surgeon for 3 years. She's thinking that his room is extremely well equipped. Not only does it have electricity, but it also has ice and food. She needs to demonstrate her worth to stay here. On the sofa, Su Chen acknowledges that being a doctor is indeed a good proposition. However, as she knows, resources are extremely scarce, and it's uncertain if they'll survive until tomorrow. Feeling uncertain upon hearing this, she says that as long as he doesn't kick her out of the room, she'll do whatever he wants. Upon hearing his proposal, Su Chen immediately states that this is her new home. She feels embarrassed, thinking she said that a bit hastily and unintentionally. Su Chen warns her that her only choice is to behave. If he catches her planning something behind his back, their relationship will end. Duan assures him that she understands and will never doubt any of his methods or determination. Su Chen then suggests that she can demonstrate her determination by undressing. She feels embarrassed and asks if he wouldn't rather have a like on the video first, since the chapters are over. I will bring you more. If you enjoyed, activate the cheeky little bell and I'm out. Do you remember that the last chapter ended when he had just absorbed the powers? And at the door of the room was Duan wanting to come in because she knew that downstairs the chances of survival were only decreasing. Su Chen opened the door in the same way he came to this world, asking if there was any problem. She obviously was confused, not understanding what was going on there. Sometime later he was embarrassed, but explained to her that he couldn't let her stay just because she was pretty. To increase his chances of letting her stay there, she explained that she was not only a cook, but also a doctor. Su Chen said it was a very tempting offer, but resources were scarce. Taken aback by this, she said she would do anything he wanted. With that, the boy's smile brightened, and he said that now it was her new home there. She covered her mouth, thinking she spoke without thinking. But Su Chen warned her that inside, her only choice was to behave. She says she understood perfectly and would never question his motivations or methods. Su Chen then said she could start by removing any piece of cloth covering the outer layer of her epidermis, better known as skin. She was embarrassed, asking if they were going to start now. Taking a shower, she thought that with water, electricity, food, and still not having to worry about the weather, that place was simply heaven for anyone. The only problem was that Su Chen wasn't exactly a saint. He grabbed her by the chin and said he was going to give her something different to eat. After 7 days of starvation, Duan opened her mouth expecting anything she would receive. While she thought she knew very well the direction this was going to take, she was prepared the moment she entered the room. Su Chen was just like us, watching on his phone screen. With a mischievous smile, he said he wasn't doing that just to spy, it was to prevent her from doing improper things. She then came out of the bathroom wearing heels. Heavens above, thank goodness she's a doctor, because I'm sure that some hearts stopped. She even asked Su Chen if it wasn't too short. He told her to turn around and she blushed. And with that, he analyzed it in an extremely meticulous clinical way and concluded that it was perfect. Suddenly, someone was knocking on the door asking for help. It seemed to be Gao Kang holding Xiao Kang, but he had big teeth. Duan said he couldn't open the door since those guys had eaten Lena down there. If they let them in, they might be eaten too. Su Chen asked her if they really had eaten someone. Outside, the 3 guys were restraining Xiao Kang, while Su Chen appeared in the background telling them not to break people's doors. They looked at Su Chen with a bunch of veins on their faces and giant teeth. It seemed like everyone was transforming. What Su Chen didn't know was that there was a guy right next to the door. Suddenly, he attacked with Minecraft blade right in Su Chen's face, but he easily grabbed the arm and managed to immobilize the guy. Gao Chang and his henchmen were halfway transformed and couldn't believe he dodged that. Suddenly, Xiao Chang broke free from them and ran towards Su Chen. She reached out for help, saying he needed to save her, but he grabbed her by the neck and clearly she was also transforming. And Su Chen explained that those who consume human flesh in this new world now transform. So clearly she's no longer human to be saved. Gao Fang said it was the end of the world, so it didn't matter if they were eating someone as long as they could survive. And Xiao Kang, even immobilized, said the meat was delicious and her body was filled with energy. She tried to attack Su Chen, saying she was eager to taste him, but she received a kick and was ejected from the door of the room to the other side. It broke even the window, falling outside the building. But she managed to hold on at the last moment and started climbing, saying that Su Chen wouldn't get away so easily. But that's when she noticed it. She was getting hit by the scorching sun and started to burn. Su Chen was calmly with his hand in his pocket, while the three thugs ran towards him, saying he couldn't be given the chance to pull out a weapon. But calmly, Su Chen asked why they thought he would waste bullets. Suddenly, one of them jumped in Su Chen's face, saying he was underestimating them too much. And the sneaky guy pulled out the Minecraft weapon and said he likes to waste it, and he hit the guy right in the head. Even though they were monsters, they kept their consciousness, so they came up with a plan to spread out and attack him from all directions. While Su Chen finished off one coming from the front, the other thug was already above on the ceiling, warning that not only were they faster, but their reaction time was also much better. With one attacking from each side, he took advantage to go over and warned Su Chen that it was the end for him. He was confident that with a punch he would finish the boy and steal everything he had. But Su Chen jumped and caught him halfway, asking if he had finished talking. And with that, they both fell, with Su Chen smashing his head on the ground. Another Minecraft blade came for him. But Su Chen was a pro and easily blocked it. With a single move, he disarmed one of the zombies and took out the other one beside. Gao Qian took advantage of this opening to try to land a punch, but his neck was also grabbed and Su Chen slammed him against the wall. But that's when something else was coming from the corridor. Even Su Chen seemed to be startled by what he saw. It was Xiao Qian completely transformed into a drought demon. She jumped from the glass and approached Su Chen. He recognized her and called her by her name. Seeing the transformation, he said she transformed too quickly, so apparently her dependencies are deep. As he finished off Gao Kuang, he said since she wouldn't disappear, he would finish her off again. And with that, Gao Qian was lifeless. Transformed, Xiao Qian let out a monstrous scream. Inside the room, Duan was getting impressed. I'm also very impressed with her, goddammit. Saying that Su Chen was too incredible, he was dealing with the entire Gao Qian gang alone. But seeing that creature in the corridor, she knew that was much more dangerous than the others. She knew that if she wanted to stay by his side for a long time, she couldn't be a burden to him. So she called Su Chen's name, who turned to see what it was. He was confused by her saying she would help. He said if she didn't get scared and hide, that was already good. But if she came out armed like that with so much thickness, he would be very distracted in combat. She was kind of confused until she realized she was indeed an impressive doctor. Meanwhile, Xiao Qian was making some noises, until she let out a big scream and jumped towards Su Chen with her mouth open. He was surprised and turned to see her coming. But it was too late, he took a blow right on the shoulder. Duan was startled and called out his name. But at that moment, Su Chen had already activated his berserker power and her claws only made small scratches. Xiao Qian turned around disbelievingly. In a quick move using her tail, she reached Su Chen's back. And taking advantage that he was immobile, she bit him right on the shoulder. But her teeth couldn't penetrate his skin, which seemed as hard as steel. She couldn't understand what just happened. Su Chen asked if her teeth were just for decoration, but warned that now it was his turn. He grabbed one arm and then the other. He jumped backwards to her back, immobilizing her. He pressed his foot on her spine, and with her unable to react, he asked if she was ready. With that, he pulled both her arms out, while jumping and slamming her on the ground. Xiao Qian fell to the ground in agony, and Su Chen stylishly landed behind her with the toothpicks in his hand. Tossing the remains away, he said he was planning to make her suffer much more in this apocalypse. But now that she's like this, she forced him to finish her off as quickly as possible. But suddenly, he noticed something. Using her tail, Xiao Qian grabbed one of the bodies on the ground. She opened her monster mouth and started swallowing the guy. Her mouth stretched all the way to the side of her spine, and her body, burning from the inside, easily melted the guy's flesh. With that, he was devoured, and her arm began to regenerate. In a few seconds, all the wounds were healed, and she stared at Su Chen and let out a scream. Even for him, it was a surprise that she could regenerate lost limbs like that. In the room, Duan was disbelieving this was completely against medicine. But strangely, Su Chen said it was too good. She was confused, not understanding what he was talking about. Su Chen was celebrating the fact that it wasn't so easy to kill her. This meant he could spend a lot of time tearing each of her pieces apart. In a flash of movement, he lunged towards Xiao Qian. Even transformed, she was unable to defeat him, and he suddenly grabbed her shoulder. With red eyes, he said they would only find out how many times her body could regenerate. Pulling her left arm, he said they would start with that one. From the other side of her ear, he said it was now the turn of the right arm and pulled another one. The monster was agonizing. Tossing the four limbs up, she fell to the ground battered. But she easily regenerated. As soon as she was back to 100%, Su-chen said the first round was over. But she'd better get ready because the second was about to begin. From the room, Doon watched everything, the rain of limbs being thrown everywhere, while Su-chen kept finishing her off. She regenerated once again, and it was time for the third round. He continued removing each of her limbs and the tail. And with that came the fourth round, the fifth round. He began testing removing other parts, and after many experiments, Cheokin was on the ground crying. While Su-chen said he was already satisfied he wasn't a demon, but the little humanity left in her made her ask why she was being treated like this. Su-chen didn't like that question, especially because he remembered very well what she did to him in the past, when he did everything for her and was stabbed in the back. And then he went to step on her, saying it was revenge. And with one step, it was the end of Cheokin. Disbelieving and scared of what she saw, Doon asked if he was okay and if he was sane. But Su-chen ignored her question and only wanted to know if she was ready. Amidst that chaos, she was confused and asked ready for what. Su-chen approached her from behind and said he had been so heroic now. Shouldn't she reward him? Doon seemed to agree because she only asked if it would be right there. In another part of the city, at a rescue point, someone said the temperatures seemed to be normalizing. With open hands, this person wondered if it was the end of the apocalypse. When suddenly Xiaofeng appeared a little embarrassed, calling for the captain. He warned that there was a crowd of survivors approaching the rescue point, and the captain took a look. With short hair and carrying 3 giant weapons, she observed what was coming. They weren't survivors, but zombies that had already been transformed into drop demons. As soon as the captain noticed this, her pupils contracted. The demons began to run towards them, and she warned to evacuate all civilians from that place. But the zombie crowd seemed endless, and Xiaofeng begged the captain not to die while defending her at the front line. She told him to shut up and advance to the rescue point. Meanwhile, Su-chen said now she would experience the power of the berserker. But Doon said she had already experienced that berserker power many times and asked how many times they had done it. Su-chen warned her that the extreme heat waves would ease off for now, and he wanted to go out to resolve something. So he needed to leave her with unforgettable memories. Timidly and hesitantly, Doon asked if she couldn't go with him. Su-chen seemed to ignore her question and only said that the people around him first needed to meet 2 conditions. They needed to be valuable and absolutely obey any order. And she replied that she understood. Another berserker adventure begins. With that, night fell and Su-chen said Doon had completely submitted to him. He knew he had to return soon before the Great Tsunamis began. In the past life, the excess of people moving towards the rescue point caused large hordes of zombies that ended up destroying that place. Many civilians and soldiers died in that concentration. Moreover, this caused Minecraft weapons to fall into the hands of several people. Suddenly, 3 guys appear in front of him and told him to stop the car or he will suffer the consequences. From inside, Su-chen seemed unfazed, wondering if that guy was crazy to ask a car to stop like that. With that, he just stepped on the accelerator. The guys were startled and started to run, but Su-chen just accelerated and lightly tapped the guys, sending them flying. Very friendly, our protagonist put the 3 to sleep peacefully on the asphalt. Su-chen knew it would be the same as before. The excessive heat and the wave of zombies caused the collapse of the subway underground. As many people ran to the deepest part to escape the heat, tens of thousands died there. Observing the bottom of the subway, several red eyes stared at him. That's because the sound of the car was attracting everyone. Unfortunately, it wasn't worth hunting power crystals since you would have to look into each of their heads. And with so many down there, it would take too much time. He then decided to take a look at the situation at the school, while remembering that he hadn't been to this place since his graduation from the engineering university. Night had fallen again when Su-chen stored his car in the dimensional space. He entered a building and came face to face with 2 transformed creatures. They were chained by collars around their necks, and from the back on the sofa, 3 guys seemed calm. And the boss said that for Su-chen to enter their territory, he would have to drop that backpack on his back. Su-chen took out a chicken leg from the bottom of the backpack, asking if those guys could help him and offering some of the food. They couldn't believe someone had chicken leg at a time like this. The boss immediately said he would definitely help him, just throw those chicken legs. Su-chen smiled and threw the chicken leg, right in the middle of the 2 drop demons. Hunger took over and the 3 guys tried to lunge to compete for the chicken leg. But it was tied by a string, and the 3 were startled when Su-chen started pulling. He apologized, saying the 3 didn't deserve to eat something so good. They grabbed his weapons to finish Su-chen, but Su-chen grabbed the Minecraft one to sort everything out. And 3 loud sounds echoed in that room. Surely it was a very good sleep-inducing weapon because the 3 boys went into an eternal sleep, while Su-chen couldn't remember so many idiots surviving in the past life. Maybe the tips he's giving to other people have affected the world more than he thinks. He heads to the reptile and snake laboratory door. Grabbing the padlock on the door, he easily destroys it, saying apparently not many people come to this place. As most of the creatures there had already died, the smell of death filled the place. Looking to the side, Suchen saw a like in this video to help Mamoru make more juicy content for his brothers. You remember that the last chapter ended just as he placed the 3 guys on the stairs to sleep peacefully. After that, he went to the reptile and snake lab. He broke the padlock and noticed that no one had entered since all this madness started. All the reptiles and snakes there had died, so the smell was terrible. Suddenly, Suchen stopped and said he found the future snake that would be the leader of an army, the Golden King Cobra. Seeing that it had devoured several others, he understood how it survived. In the past life, this was one of the first creatures to undergo the atavistic change, which means reverting to an ancestral form. He knows that in a week, the floods will begin, and that's when this monster will transform. If he can't prevent it, it will cause a lot of trouble. Seeing that it keeps staring at him, Suchen thinks that it seems to have already developed some consciousness. Suddenly, he hears a sound and realizes someone is there. Just behind the door, some armed men prepare to enter. They shout that they know Suchen is inside and order him to come out now. The protagonist calmly comes out, saying he's at a critical moment and can't be disturbed. However, suddenly he notices something. A girl with gray hair approaches, and the guys seem to recognize her. Before they can react, she jumps towards them, putting one in a neck hold and another in a leg lock. Before the other guy can react, she falls next to him and climbs onto his back. A quick hand movement and another one is down. However, someone points a Nerf gun to her head, saying her moves weren't bad. She quickly reacts, elbowing the person's hand and raising both legs to trap Suchen. However, when she tries to apply pressure to break his head, he doesn't move. And the guy doesn't even react, right? He's taking deep breaths. A minute later, he points the Nerf gun again and asks who she is, now tied up. If it was just to immobilize, there was no need for all that show. But it seems he tied her up for something more. She introduces herself as Bai Kang from the Special Operations Team and warns Suchen that he better let her go. He ignores what she said and asks if she knows Xiao Feng, also from the Special Forces. She is surprised that he knows the guy, and Suchen says he once saved that kid's life. With a delicious piece of meat being prepared, Suchen says he understands everything. It seems that a group of fugitives took control of the school and are using several people as hostages. Kang says it all happened very quickly when Xiao Feng was rescuing some prisoners. Calmly eating his meat, Suchen says that if that's the case, it's not her fault. She says that now with these powers, those people are nothing to fear. However, she wants to know when she will be freed from these ropes. Strangely, Suchen says he will only release her if she traps him with her leg again. Man, this guy doesn't stop. She says she agrees to do it if he gives her a piece of meat. Sometime later, the rope was cut. What happened? I have no idea. But Suchen handed her a weapon, saying there's a lot to resolve, so he can't help for now. He tells her to leave and stop being a pain. However, Kang says she will attack the guy's base. Without the resources they stole, the survivors won't have anything to eat. She insists, saying this might be the last time they see each other. Hearing that the guys have several supplies, Suchen tells her to wait. He goes through his bag and pulls out an AWM, saying that Xiao Feng is her brother, so he will be a little help. Meanwhile, in the administrative block of the school, in a room there are several armed guys and another with 2 girls on his lap. He asks how things are going. One of the henchmen says everyone is waiting outside. This time they will be able to finish off all the students. The boss says that's good to hear and tells them to put those who disobey on the front line so they die quickly. Suddenly, the door is kicked in. Everyone is startled and Suchen appears, apologizing for interrupting the meeting. One of the henchmen asks how he got there when there are more than 20 guards in the building. Suchen says he will calmly explain how he got in. He points his finger at one of the guys and says, "Bang!" The guy's head explodes. Everyone in the room is shocked, wondering how it's possible for someone to kill another person just by pointing a finger. Suchen continues pointing at everyone and warns that anyone who moves will die. The boss angrily tells him to shut up. However, from somewhere else, a person with a sniper rifle says the target has been eliminated. It's Bai Kang from the top of a building with the AWM. But she's insecure, as Suchen is alone there and there are a lot of dangerous people in that place. For her, this plan of his to go alone is very risky. However, when Suchen handed over the weapon, these were exactly the orders he gave. She wonders how she had the courage to trust something so foolish. Suddenly, when she aims, the curtains are closed. She screams to Suchen, asking what's happening and why the curtains were closed. She hears that the people in the room seem to have figured out it was a sniper doing the job. She runs out now, sure that her location has been discovered. She runs down the stairs, hoping Suchen is okay. running desperately while hearing in her earpiece that they are sending people to kill him. The poor girl is almost losing her mind. She bursts through the door, saying she's here for revenge. However, the henchmen are all on the ground as Sushen is holding the boss by the neck. He warns that there are no supplies there. He rummages through his inventory while the boss says it's better not to kill him. If he does, he will be hunted by the rest of the group. Sushen gives him a chiropractic session and cracks his neck, saying not to worry because everyone will join him soon enough. Baikang asks if he really did all that by himself. Sushen says he's been exercising a lot. He says there are no supplies left there. She is confused and wonders if someone else got there before them and stole everything. Obviously, there are no supplies in that room because Sushen has already stored them all in his dimensional space. He thinks he'll only share with others if he's sure how they'll act. He then says it's time for them to go to the girls' dormitory. She asks why specifically theirs. Sushen says he got this information from the boss. However, in that same room among the hanging bodies was a girl who had just transformed. A bald man with a bever appears, saying that the damn girl was causing trouble again. He wonders if she's still alive. He approaches the tied-up girl and says it's a shame if she's dead. With that, they drop her to the ground. The guy says that Sister G has been pretending to be captured for several days and asks if she has found what she's looking for. She says she's very shaken because she almost died and needs some comfort from the Steel Fang. The guy says if that's the case, he'll help. He caresses her back with the whip. He asks how she's feeling, and she says she's much better now. He says that apparently she must have seen everything and asks who took his supplies. She warns that the guy was a demon, and he says he'll make him pay. She then reveals that the guy's name was Sushen. At the girls' dormitory, Sushen finds Xiaofeng, who asks what he's doing there. Baikang finds it suspicious, especially since Sushen said he was a friend of his. However, he changes the subject and asks to see Xiaofeng's wound. Seeing that they are cuts from cannibals, he warns that those types of claws are full of infections and viruses. The chance of it being something fatal is very high, so he needs medicine. Xiaofeng says that at the moment, medicine is extremely rare, but he won't accept dying like this. Suddenly, Sushen hands over a bunch of medicine and says it's enough. Both turn around, shocked, and ask where he got that from. Sushen says it doesn't matter. He only gave it because the guy is his friend. However, he's only doing it because in the army, there's going to be an extremely powerful guy known as the God of War. So for now, investing in them is not a bad idea. Xiaofeng thanks him but says he knows very well that Sushen wouldn't be there just to give something for free. And then he asks what he wants. Sushen warns that the floods are coming and they need to evacuate everyone. Because of the intense heat, the glaciers have melted and the water level is rising. Soon, this entire city will be underwater. The two are a bit confused and suddenly a girl shouts, saying that he's telling everyone to leave so he can keep the school's resources. Sushen recognizes her as Fang King, a rich girl who liked to create gender disputes at school. Seeing that he has a backpack, she asks if he brought any food and immediately reaches out to grab it, saying she wants to take a look. But he slaps her in the face without saying anything. A tooth falls into her hand and she asks how he dared to do that. However, strangely, everyone is against her, saying she's been monopolizing everything in the dormitory for a long time. They say it's good to kick her out of that place. Sushen says she seems quite infamous around here. She yells at him, saying she'll find her father and make sure everyone there dies. Seeing the girl leave, Baikang asks if it's okay to let her go like that. Sushen says she's going to find her father and asks if she wants to stop that. As Fang King is leaving the school, cursing Sushen and saying he should be beneath her, a hand grabs her from behind. It was this Steel Fang asking where Sushen was. The protagonist was leaving as he was going to let the army handle the evacuation, since the most important thing was to kill the Golden King Cobra as soon as it mutates. After all, it had the ability to manipulate water, which would be very useful for him. Suddenly, Sushen heard someone calling his name and asking for help. He recognized it as Fang King's voice and wondered what she was doing. However, he found her hanging by a rope and questioned if she had found her father so quickly. The guy in the background introduced himself as the Steel Fang from the Evolution Federation. He told Sushen he thought he was a more powerful person to have had the courage to steal the supplies. Sushen asked if the guy really was from the Evolution Federation. The Steel Fang replied yes and said he even prepared a gift for the boy. He knocked on a container full of dry demons inside and asked Sushen if he was ready to die. Xiaofeng and Baikang hear a loud noise. She realizes it's coming from the direction Sushen went and tells Xiaofeng to keep an eye on things there. However, he says he won't stay either. He wants to go along to help in case something happened. Up ahead, Sushen is calm. The Steel Fang says that girl was from his university. Why doesn't he take the chance to play the hero and save the princess? Just kneel, and he'll leave the girl there. Su Shen, pensive, says saving her is not impossible. Fang King gets excited and says he's amazing and asks him to kneel then. But then he says they have a little problem. She asks what kind of problem it is that will prevent her from being saved and starts yelling, saying he said he would save her, so he can't go back on his word and has to be a real man. Su Shen explains that he is not a man who deserves to save her. He tells her to call the guys who always bootlicked her and went to the protests to come and save her here. Fang King yells at him, saying it seems he's trying to get revenge just because she said he was an inferior person. She says she won't apologize or beg to be saved. She calls him a pathetic loser and says she doesn't need him. Su Shen smiles and tells her to remember what she's saying. As Fang King looks down, a bunch of dry zombies are surrounding her. Being consumed, she starts screaming, saying she was wrong and asking for help. But now she's gone. The Steel Fang says he's crazy and didn't even try to help the princess. But that's okay since he'll join her soon. He applies a powder to his face and says it's a new item they created. With it, you can control those demons. Su Shen says it's just the ashes of those monsters' skeletons. Even the fool of the Steel Fang didn't know that and says it's really a disgusting thing. But he immediately orders all of them to attack Su Shen. He prepares, pulls out a blade in one hand, a blade in the other. In a second, a bunch of purple cuts are drawn on the creatures and Su Shen passes through. He falls to the ground and the blades disappear. The guy says it looks like he wants to play before dying. However, he gets startled when he sees that Su Shen is already right in front of him. In the background, Bai Kang and Xiaofeng were watching everything. They were shocked to see that Su Shen was completely surrounded, and from the top of the truck, the guy kept shouting for the monsters to attack Su Shen but wondered why they were standing still. Su Shen told him to stop shouting because it was useless. The guy asked what he meant by that, and Su Shen explained that he had already dealt with them all. The Steel Fang was shocked, saying that it was impossible. Su Shen, in one move, entered the portal and appeared behind the guy, saying he had never stolen anything from this so-called Evolution Federation. He placed his hands on the guy's head and asked who sent him to kill him, but then he said he changed his mind and would end it right away. The guy asked what he was going to do, but Su Shen just smiled. As he agonized, his neck disconnected. And wow, it turned into a Mortal Kombat scene. Seeing all that, Bai Kang knew it was impossible for someone to train and become so strong. Su Shen was some kind of monster. While the protagonist thought that he needed an assistant to deal with these things because he didn't want too many people to know what his powers were. Meanwhile, in the hotel where it all started, Ye was practicing her DJ techniques while singing a high-pitched song, saying that Su Shen shouldn't abandon her in this place. She woke up saying that apparently she dreamed of him again last night. In the apocalypse, there's nothing to eat, but this girl is growing, and she's just wondering when he'll come back. She remembers that he said he wouldn't accept useless people by his side and got excited, saying she would never be a burden to him. She picked up a Nerf saying she wanted to be his right hand and opened a door where she heard a sound coming from. There was nothing in the room, and she found it strange, when suddenly she felt something and her pupil contracted. A dry demon was right behind her. She leaned back, wondering when that monster appeared. However, she bumped into the table and was blocked. At that moment, she remembered she had the gun and went to grab it, but she hit the chair. The Nerf fell from her hand and rolled across the table. The dry demon came to bite her. She closed her eyes knowing it was over. But strangely, the creature seemed to bite the chair. She moved to the side, wondering what that monster was doing. Realizing it seemed to be smelling her, she guessed it couldn't see. The problem was that she was too close, and if she made a sound, she would be attacked. She tried to grab the Nerf she had dropped on the table. It was her only chance to end it. But she hit her head, and the monster seemed to notice something. It came to bite. She remembered Su Shen had warned that he wouldn't keep her around just because she was pretty, and that inside every monster's head was a crystal, and he didn't like useless people. With that, she told herself she wasn't useless and stomped on the monster's eye with her heel. The tick got stuck. She tried to resist so the monster wouldn't come closer. But as soon as her foot came out, the creature grabbed her by the ankle. Doon got angry and stomped on the other eye with the other foot. With that, the monster fell to the ground. She picked up the axe next to her, saying she wasn't useless. She was going to take the crystal from that monster's head and show Su Shen that she was strong. Meanwhile, in the girls' dormitory, Bai Kang and Xiaofeng started evacuating everyone, following Su Shen's tip. And the Golden King Cobra had begun its mutation. Face to face with it, Su Shen was just waiting for the transformation to start. He knew what it needed was water, so he brought a bucket. As soon as he placed it on the ground, the snake started to go for it, and he realized it had intelligence. The moment she made contact with the water, the transformation began. She started to shake and the bucket swelled. Suddenly, it exploded in front of him. The creature had grown huge and was now face to face with him. Su Shen realized she had become much stronger just with that bit of water. It would have been extremely dangerous if he had let the floods come. He drew his blade and warned that if she submitted, he would consider making her a pet. But suddenly, she flew toward the window. Sushen realized that the creature was more intelligent than he had imagined and jumped outside where the creature seemed to want to escape. Seeing this situation, he knew he had no choice. So he jumped with the sword in hand and tried to stab her head, but the blade broke. Her scales were much more resistant than he thought, and the snake came to bite him. But he calmly jumped towards her, saying that if a blade didn't work, he used his fists. With that, he punched her head into the ground. She took advantage of his distraction to try to wrap her body around him. Immobilized, he said she was quite treacherous and prepared to finish him off, making Sushen realize that everything so far had been part of her plan. She then came to end him. Elsewhere, a guy from the army tells the captain that she can't forget about Sushen because she keeps looking in the direction he went. She tells him to shut up. However, he warns that if the guy went alone, he would die. But Bai Kang says it's impossible. She is sure that Sushen is much stronger than he appears. It's almost as if he were an untamed monster in this apocalypse. A hand comes and stops the snake's strike. Sushen asks if she really thought she would defeat him with that. He says he knows very well the regenerative capabilities of snakes, but what he's going to do is different. Then he pulls her by the head, throws her aside, and splits her body in two. With that, he finds the crystal he was looking for. Seeing the crystal, he is sure by the color that it is the one that leaves like in this video to help Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers. Activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.